Nobody.
Are we?
Hi, Winkai. Yes, so the captioner is not here. So I'm not sure what to do about that. We sent them confirmation in the links.
Maybe a little bit late, running late. We give them, yeah.
Yeah, and we also just don't have many people in the waiting room here. So
yeah, 58, so we can give them a few minutes. Hopefully the captioner will show up.
The captioner came quite early last time, so I'm a little surprised by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Mohammed, Goretti, and Rose.
Yeah, and then Rose has the interpreter too. I don't remember his name, but he was here. He's the guy with the headphones that's doing her interpretation. So it should be, I can't remember his name, but that should be easily viewed. Yeah. And let's just get our spreadsheet.
I feel like it's challenging to do these two sessions, not knowing the fellows and trying to.
Yeah, I feel I was I had high hopes for the community practice, but I think it's just kind of a lot for the fellows. I don't get the sense that people in the community practice have been able to talk to each other much. So, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So we'll do our best with this to get through these breakout rooms. So again, the beginning of the session, I'll introduce.
Don't stop recording now first, or pause it?
Yeah, sure. I can just edit this.
Yeah, you can edit it.
Okay. I can just edit the beginning out because I've been sitting here quietly for a little bit. So the opening of the session, I'll just greet everyone very quickly, and then I'll share the format. We're doing the 3 breakout rooms. And then I'll again read my summary and introduce my questions. And then I'll pass it over to Jabril to do session 2 and to Wing Kai to do session 3. And then I'll also paste these questions in the chat. So let me actually just get that kind of loaded up here.
Just hope that they finish the 3 sessions. That's the hope. That's the expectation.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even if they didn't finish them, they can still have an intelligent discussion about the way we've set up these questions. But yeah, it would be preferred if we could address all these questions in earnest. Okay, great. Let me just okay. Those questions in the chat. And then you guys have a copy of these transcripts as well. You might need to repaste them in the chat when you go into a breakout room.
Okay. Are we co-hosts now?
You are. I think Jabril already was. I can double. Yeah, he already was a co-host. So you guys should be able to record. And then we have a couple of faculty here as well with us. We've got Jenny, Jackie, and Janine Davis Street. So we've got a few BSU
we get them to different rooms.
That's great. Yeah, so make sure they are distributed. Again, our captioner is still not here. So I guess we'll just go ahead without captions. I don't really know what other solution we have.
Right. That's fine. Yeah.
So yeah, we can give our apologies to those fellows subsequent to the session. All right, so should we let folks in, get started?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not all here yet, but we can start the program.
Right.
Right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're still admitting a few attendees here. And welcome to our second of 2 sessions in this Mandela Washington Fellowship Community of Practice on Education. As many of you remember from last week, I'm Dr. Megan Healy-Clancy with my colleague, Dr. Jabril Solomon, one of the academic directors of the Institute based at Bridgewater State University. And we're also joined by our colleague, Dr. Wing Kai To, who's the administrative coordinator of the Mandela Washington program and also serves as a vice provost for international engagement with the Minnick Center for Global Engagement here at Bridgewater State. So welcome back. We also have the privilege of being joined by several very gifted administrators and faculty from BSU who are experts in the field of education and will be joining in the breakout sessions with you today. We have Dr. Jackie Bovin, I see here, Dr. Jenny Eisenman, Dean Janine Davis Street, and I think that's all for our BSU cohort right now at this point. So I'm really looking forward to our session today. We also have our fantastic program assistant, Kemi Taiwo, who's with us, who will be helping to facilitate too. I think that's everybody. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. This is fantastic. So today we'll be picking up where we left off in our discussion last Thursday. Last Thursday, as you'll recall, we were in breakout rooms focusing on challenges that the past year and a half have presented to education in our countries. The COVID-19 pandemic being a common challenge we've all faced, but really exacerbating and being exacerbated by other political, economic, and social inequities we've been facing over the past year and a half, and indeed for a much longer period of time. Right, so we were discussing some of these challenges. Today, we'll be focusing in a little bit more detail on strategies that you've devised, that you've seen devised in your home countries and communities to address some of these deep challenges in our educational systems. In that discussion, we'll also be engaging today more directly with the 3 recorded sessions that you watched, the 3 asynchronous sessions. To do so, we'll be breaking into 3 breakout rooms. The first breakout room I will be serving as the host for, and we'll be talking about questions inspired by the first session, focusing on state leadership and the pursuit of social justice. So as you all will recall from that first session, we had Professor Paul Revelle from Harvard University talking about how historically, and indeed in many ways into the present, the American educational system has been very decentralized, giving local communities quite a lot of control over educational decision-making. Dr. Yves Solomon Fernandez subsequently spoke about how community colleges have been particularly important as vectors of opportunity in the American educational system. And subsequently, right, Dr. Stacy Scott of Boston University highlighted that a leader has to build consensus on a plan that is clearly articulated and owned by everyone in the community environment. Right, so all three of these leaders from very different perspectives, from talking about state leadership, talking about leading an institution such as a community college, being a faculty member at a university, right, spoke about the importance of getting a community involved in educational decision making. And so in my group, we'll be considering this question: what do you believe should be the role of local communities in educational policymaking in your country? And we'll be talking specifically about what strategies you have found successful for building consensus on how to improve education in your community. And then I'll pass the floor over here to my colleague, Dr. Jabril Solomon, to talk about the insights and questions he'll be raising in his breakout room on the second session. Jabril.
So much. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, depending on the time of the day that you are scheduled to be here. Excited to have you. And the section 2 today is, the focus is on educational curricula and the pursuit of social justice. And if you were wondering, to kind of recap what the session was about, the session asked for 3 major questions. The first one was, how can curricula empower students and communities? Because education is a powerful tool that affects different communities, but how can the curricula empower students, the learners, and the communities? Number 2, how can educators serve diverse students through inclusive curricula? Because they play a key important role in how we exercise education in our communities. The final question of this session is around how inclusive and socially just engaged civic education can produce a more engaged democracy. So those are sort of like the 3 overarching questions that we're kind of exploring through this session. We had, as you recall, 3 speakers who spoke about this. The first one was Dr. Kevin McGraw, who is a member of our Department of Education at Bridgewater State University, who spoke about pedagogies and cultural empathy around how do we pursue social justice around the pedagogy and cultural, from a cultural lens that emphasizes empathy and inclusivity. Our second speakers, which were actually 2 of them, were Dr. Diana Fox and Dr. Joyce Rand Anderson. Their presentation was around decolonizing the curriculum. A very important talk, because a lot of times education has been designed since its beginning to project and continue to emphasize decentralize around, old ideas coming from not the communities that are being served. You learning and reading about books and stories about Europe, ancient Europe, Western civilization, even though your education is centralized in your own home countries and your own. So how do we decolonize education to ensure that what we're teaching and learning is actually addressing the needs of the communities and is also speaking to the history and the realities and the cultural value of each community? Our final speaker in the presentation was Dr. Yao Rosa, who is a linguist, and his talk centered around linguistic diversity and social justice. In other words, most of his talk is centralized around how do we support English language learners and other people who are involved in the international and national education system, and how do we make sure that their perspective is engaged, is considered as we develop educational systems that are more global and not just sort of oriented towards a Western view of what education should be about, the value connected to education in itself. So those were our three speakers, and all the panelists, their conversation centered around the discussion about reflection on educational leadership in the pursuit of social justice. So your challenge, all of you as leaders, no matter what capacity or areas of leadership you're in education, this session is asking you for your reflection on educational leadership and the pursuit of social justice in that leadership. How do we ensure that social justice is grounded and embedded in how we exercise educational leadership, no matter which country, no matter what areas of education, whether it's elementary, secondary, or post-secondary, or higher education systems. The questions that I'm going to be asking for you to reflect on, which I'll post on the chat. The first question is, how do you think educational curricula can be developed from a social justice lens in your own country? Because we need to ensure that the curricula itself is developed paying attention to social justice. Who's left behind? Whose story is not included in what we learn? Certainly in the United States, we have our own problems about how much of Black history, Indigenous history, is missing from our own curriculum. So it's not just about what's happening in Africa, but we have our own problems too in regard to addressing that question. So we will come back to that. The second question that I want you to reflect on would be, what strategies would you share about how the educational system in your country can pursue social justice and empower students and communities? It's not just about educating, but how do we educate and empower and do it in a socially just way so that all participants in the systems and all citizens, no matter what their income level, race, status, gender, social status, have access to a socially just educational system that would actually support their own development and as a result, the development of your own nations. So those are the questions we will be discussing in my session. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. I hope you all are ready, and make sure that when you get there, please hold on to your seats because we're going to have a very exciting time in that session. Now I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Wing, who is going to be helping us facilitate our session 3. Dr. To.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. Can you all hear me? It's all right. So I'm in the session about technology and the future of education. It's the third session that you have been watching in the curriculum. And of course, the role of technology in education is not a new issue. Everyone has been going through this transition over the last 10 years or last 20 years with the advent of technological development. However, last year, because of COVID-19, we all faced new challenges. How do we apply technology in the classrooms and also in education in general, whether you're dealing with K-12 education, primary education, secondary education, or higher education? And what is the role of technology in the future of education? So in my session, we'll be focusing on reflections on technology and the future of education in both the American and African contexts. So you have watched a video session about the role of education in the American context. So we'll have more time to discuss the African context. So I have a few questions for you to think about, and I think that the questions are also on the chat. How do you think technology can be used in your country to make education accessible to all? What strategies would you offer about the use of technology to advance education and economic development? And finally, what are the obstacles to technological tools and training for the educational system in your nation? If you have watched the videos, you will know that we had 3 speakers who addressed some of these issues. Ruth Farmer discussed national policy and practices to support technology education inclusion for women and underrepresented groups in the United States. Dr. Heather Pacheco Guthrie examined educational technology tools to enhance science, technology, and engineering education. And also we have Omar Bashar, who argue how technology facilitates collaboration and engagement in history education in the United States and in Africa, especially relating to South Africa, because he's from South Africa. So again, we'll have this discussion. So I'll bring this back to Dr. Keely Clancy, who started the session.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Dr. Solomon, Dr. Toe. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Again, one word of apology related to technology. Our captioner has been unable to come thus far. We're currently working on it, either having some problem connecting to this session. So my sincere apologies to fellows who are affected by this. We're working on getting him in here. So we're going to move into breakout rooms now. You'll be randomly assigned to those breakout rooms, and we'll have some of our guest faculty and administrators joining us in these rooms as well. And we'll be focusing again on those questions that we've pasted in the chat here for each of those groups. So we'll have some time in these groups, let's say about a half hour. Does that sound good? That's a little off on time already. About a half hour in those groups, and then we'll come back to discuss some of the key takeaways. So in each of our groups, we'll appoint one of our group members to be a note taker who can come back to present to our whole group about these insights. All right, so Dr. Toe is going to open up these breakout rooms just now. And as he's doing, okay, there you go. As he's doing that, if anyone has any other questions you want to raise in the chat, you can do so. All right, so I think everyone who's here still will be in my room. So welcome. Let's just briefly go around and introduce ourselves, since this is only the second time that this particular cohort of fellows has met. Kemi, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Kemi. I am currently studying my program in public administration at Rwanda State University, and I'm also the program assistant for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. It's glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, and Kemi has been doing invaluable work for the program. She's been great. Dr. Eisenman, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenny Eisenman, and I'm director of the Center for the Advancement of STEM Education at Bridgewater State University. And we're a science education center, and we work with teachers and members of the community.
Great, thank you. All right, and let's have our fellows introduce themselves again briefly. Amadou Diallo, would you like to go first?
Hello, everybody. It's a great honor to meet you all again. As you can see, I put on my phone lights. We don't have electricity. That's another fact. I'm Diallo Ahmad Bailo from Guinea-Conakry, and it's a great honor for me to meet you all, and I hope this meeting will be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's great to see you. Great. And Mohammed from Kenya.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you again. This is Mohammed from Kenya. Oh, yeah. So I'm working here in Kenya as a government official, actually, in the Department of Fisheries, as an assistant director. I'm working on the education program, the students mentorship program. So I think that is all. We'll discuss more later. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. All right, and Goretti from Uganda.
Thank you, everyone. Just a moment. Thank you, everyone. My name is Goretti Biomila. I'm a lecturer. I teach IT and computing. I'm also the director for the Disability Center at my university. I'm also a PhD, and I'm an advocate for disability inclusion in education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greti. It's wonderful to see you again. So Rose is also joining us here, but she's having some trouble with access. So Rose will largely be participating via the chat today. So everyone pay attention to the chat as well. Likewise, like Amadou, you have electricity issues. If you're having trouble communicating aloud, the chat is a great resource. And so Rose says here in the chat, I am Rose Kwamboka from Kenya. I work as a disability advisor with an international NGO called Leonard Cheshire. So welcome back, Rose. Dennis, would you like to introduce yourself again?
Oh, yes. My name is Dennis Additional. I'm from Cote d'Ivoire. I work at AFDB, African Development Bank, as a junior consultant. I'm very passionate about education because I believe that is the area for change, and that we can make a lot impact through education. So that's all about me.
Wonderful, thank you. It's great to hear you again, Dennis. And Fosi, I mispronounced that last time.
Good day, everyone. My name is Fosi Yar. I've graduated from my LLB a few years ago and completed an educational sciences degree recently from Finland. I am currently teaching, and it's nice to be here with you all. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. It's great to have you back. And finally, Donat.
Good day, everybody. My name is Donat Mujenga. I am from Rwanda. At the moment, I am working with Rwanda Institute for Conservation and Agriculture as a director of recruitment and admissions. And I also volunteer on the advisory committee for the MasterCard Foundation program, mentorship program. I'm so delighted to be here tonight with you all. Thank you.
Wonderful, and it's great to have you back again as well. All right, so let's dig into those questions. So again, our central questions for this group center on community engagement, right? So first of all, people can jump in wherever they wish. What do you believe should be the role of local communities in educational policy making in your country? Yes, yeah, Mohammed.
Yeah, what I wanted to say about the involvement of the community in the making or in the policy making for education are two actually. One, the time we talked about the consumer versus creator. So what I think, if the community can make their children become creators, situate their children as creators at the home level, these kids will have that attitude of creativity. Therefore, when they go to school, it's like they become, they will have that creativity attitude in them. Therefore, they will not become just consumers. They'll also be creative, I mean, in the education sector. Two is the issue of development of educational materials. I mean, if the community can be involved to develop educational materials, I think that is a good platform to involve the community so that they can be part and parcel of the education's policy at the county level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so certainly, yeah, getting more sort of creative engagement, right, from all of the stakeholders involved in the educational process. Other thoughts, other sorts of visions of what is ideal for the engagement of communities in education. Other reflections on that. All right, we can move to our second question. You might have some more. Oh, sorry, was someone speaking?
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Amadou, yes, please.
Okay.
So I didn't get well your question. The question you asked to Mohammed, can I come back to that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Yeah. So what do you believe should be the role of local communities in policymaking?
Yeah, I'm just giving you an example of my village. And when I was a kid, we only had 2 classes, okay? 2 classes, and these classes is split to grades. The first grade, second grade, at the primary level. What my community did, especially my dad, was that it took them very long, something like 2 to 3 to 4 years to think about, to collect money, to make a fundraising in order to build up 2 more classes. And I studied Arabic, and Arabic is very important as I'm a Muslim in our community. The government, they wrote many times to the local government, but they didn't get any opportunity to have more classes. What they did is first, they raised fund to build 2 more classes. And then we didn't have toilets, and they come up to fundraising. Each child of father coming from different families give some amount of money. They build up toilets. The role of the community in the education is, first of all, that if the government is not taking their responsibilities, the community should know that if their kid don't go to school, it's going to affect themselves and also the community, why not the whole country? And this is a typical example that still they have built up 2 more classes. Now, what we used to do is that, it's just an anecdote, I'm telling you. When there were 3 grades in 1 room. So when the first grade is the turn of the first grade, everybody from the second to third grade will not speak. And the teacher will explain specifically to this, and the blackboard was split into 3 parts. You see, maybe you did not experiment that, but it's a reality. And since then, they come up to 6 classes built up by own fundraising and toilets. And currently they're working to have a library for the kids. In short, this is the role of the community, to take over to situations, because if my community grow up, it will come from their children, and investing in that. And the recent decision they took, there's no, during the educational year period, kids don't go to a nightclub or playing football, if not a kind of program. Parents, they have every year they will have a meeting to see what's going on, what are the steps they have been moving forward, they're put together, what are the challenges they need to undertake. I think my community, actually, I'm so much proud. It's a great example of the emancipation, and I'm one of the product from this community. It's a great honor for me to say thank you to all of them to getting involved in my education at this level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a really great concrete example of community engagement and fundraising and transforming schooling opportunities. So I wonder, for all of the fellows to reflect on how you've been able to achieve consensus about what to prioritize in education, right? Because I could imagine in a situation such as the school expansion you talked about, Amadou, different constituencies having different priorities, right? Different curricular ideas, different kind of, subsets of the community they're trying to reach out to. So how in all of your experiences have you been able to build consensus about how to make educational change and progress? And you can speak here too in terms of sort of what specific challenges you have confronted around making decisions on how to improve educational systems.
So I think my colleague is not really active today. Wake up. So yeah, And what I want to say is this: challenges in Africa are many. To be honest, there are many. As I was telling you last time, infrastructure issues is a real challenge. I think African continents are both, our problem are mainly the same. We don't have the infrastructure. Where in what I was talking about just was like the primary schools. I worked for more than 4 years, 18 kilometers every day, 6 days a week to go to school. That's a real challenge. And what I'm advocating currently is to have a secondary and a high school at my village. Not only the schools, but also the health center is located around 9 kilometers far away from us. And I'm advocating, as I'm growing, I'm advocating to build up, to have a high school and also to have the secondary and the high school. Many of our brothers gave up from school because they couldn't work these security matters, the many forests when working early in the morning to go to school. And sometimes I used to sleep in the classroom. Why? Because I worked 9 kilometers in the morning. It was a real challenge. And as I grow, I am looking forward to give the opportunity to my brothers to have the secondary and high school. That's a big challenge. I think that I will be coming up to solve, inshallah, in the coming years.
Yeah, thank you. Goretti, did you want to add on to that with your perspectives from Uganda?
Thank you very much. I want to answer on why I believe in the role of the local country in Uganda. When I look at
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, Goretti. Sorry, are you still speaking?
The local communities as far as education. Okay, I was saying that when our local community are quite very hard to find that mainly about the education policies. As long as parents take their children to school, that is enough. So there is not really much involvement in what goes on education, what is being taught, how are students learning, what are the learning objectives, what are the learning outcomes, what are the progress. So it's quite very disjointed. The local community is more or less not really interested, and they've left everything to the government. So and everyone is just doing the way they see it fit, like. So the local community in my country is not really engaged in education policies. Much of them do not even know that we have educational policies in place, even for special needs students. Thank you very much.
So what's
hello?
Oh yes, hello. Who's speaking?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry. Is that? Yes.
Can I also comment?
Yes, please go for it. Yes, Fosi, that would be great.
Oh yeah. I would combine the second question with the first one and briefly just touch on both. Currently, the challenges that we have been facing since the pandemic was that we were in a rural area. We were unable to reach the children and educate we were unable to continue education basically because of the lockdowns. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we've been facing. So we have actually been trying to find ways how we can, reach out to the learners. But one thing that I would like to add by touching on the first question is the involvement of parents. We have realized that if we involve the parents in our everyday teaching and learning, things will become much more easy. And especially now, currently during the lockdown, parental help has become so much more vital and so much more important, because now we can communicate with the parents and assist the parents so that the parents can, help the kids at home. So we started this initiative where we would print out booklets or notebooks in the rural areas where people do not have smart devices. Yeah. So we'll print out these booklets and the parents will pick them up and, teach the kids at home, and will assist the parents on how to help the kids. So basically just to emphasize the importance of parental involvement and the involvement of communities to ensure that, we can, we can provide education even in times of this way. The pandemic has made things even worse. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I recall we talked about that last week as well, how, this deft solution of distributing booklets to parents, right? I mean, this is an enormous amount of labor, but also does provide this opportunity to connect with parents in ways that, hopefully will lay the groundwork for deeper engagement in the future. Dennis, did you have your hand up before as well?
Oh, yes. I'm enjoying the discussion because if I may comment on the role of the community, I believe the issue of education require collective action. And when I mean collective action, both the community, the state, the civil society, everyone, because when the consequences of not educating the citizen comes, we all face it. We are all confronted with it. In my country, Cote d'Ivoire, education is compulsory. It's compulsory and free. Let me say, I think it's still 11 years old. But when parents don't prefer to take their children to a village or probably to a job, instead of taking them to school, it is our role also as the community also to say, oh, this person is not taking the person to school. So what should you do? I think also this role also we need to play that. It's true that the state is trying its best to help in education, which we also need to facilitate it. In Cote d'Ivoire, personally, I established a group with a fellow friend to work on assisting the state in establishing schools. And what we do is to first of all bring out the objective, the need in some particular community that don't have some schools, and then make a collection by which it is not for free. It's not that it is that you will not get your benefit from it, because state sponsor the schools, but sometimes state cannot maybe initiate, or the process the process will be too long for the state to initiate the establishment of a school in the community. But we can contribute to that and establish it, and this will help the community to develop. This is very, very, very personal to me, because I know I have faced a lot of consequences in the village by which there was no school, and then I have to move out. So I was lucky enough to find people that assisted me, but a lot of people are facing these challenges. And the second aspect is probably we've not touched, is relating to technology. It is true that technology today is a window. It will take us it's giving us another view, another opportunity for education, and which we can take advantage of. But at the same time, I'm trying to look at the level of education today. Do we have students who can really take advantage of those technology? How do we prepare those children to be able to take advantage of those technology? These are some of the questions I'm trying to ask myself. I'm trying to see how we can really develop action that will help helping those children. That is all. And there's a lot of things to say, but that's all for me.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and those reflections will be really useful to bring back to our full group discussion as well, about how we build up that kind of technological literacy and capacity. Donat, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience in Rwanda?
Yes, maybe I want to talk about primary and secondary education, which I may not have, more knowledge about. But let me speak a little bit about, university education. We have previously talked of a collective action to make education accessible. And yes, I have seen this work in Rwanda back in 1994. And this is, when Rwanda experienced a tragic history of genocide. Since then to today, the country has grown from 3 universities to 26.
Wow.
And it's really seems to be an impressive growth. And out of the 26, majority, nearly all of them, in fact, 24 are private. So that is an indication of, a collective effort. The civil society, as I say, the private sector, the communities, and of course, the government ahead to help, put in place policies. But in terms of making education accessible or flexible and of course affordable, the community, in this case, I'm referring to other players besides the government, plays a very significant role. And we have made university level education accessible across the country, through working with the other key players, which I'm referring to as a community. And access to university now across the country, including remote areas, has at least improved, not really at the level where we would want it to be, but the participation of the community in making university education accessible has been central to making us be where we are. One challenge is that we still have, which we'll probably have an opportunity to talk about, is again, the use of technology to make education more accessible and affordable. So as we speak now, the country goal was to have 50% of all programs taught at the universities offered by open and distance learning. And we are nowhere close to target. So this is a challenge despite government policies and investment in infrastructure by the government. And the role of the community will be central to making this happen. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to come to this later.
Yeah, no, those are really interesting points. I certainly am familiar with the growth of university access in Rwanda, but I had no idea about the numbers involved, right? From 3 to 26 universities since 1994. That's really remarkable. And I wonder, one of the presentations that you saw on the asynchronous content was about community colleges and the importance of access for adult learners, people that have already entered the workforce, have children, et cetera. To what extent is that a possibility in Rwanda or in other countries that fellows are speaking from? What kind of access is available for learners that are not just coming right out of secondary school?
I'm sorry, my internet
broke
out.
Yes, technology. No, my question was about access to adult learners, right? Learners who are not just fresh out of secondary school. One of your presentations that you watched online focused on community colleges and parents, people that are sort of retraining for new jobs coming into school. To what extent are those communities being served by higher education in Rwanda?
Did you mean the access to education for adult learners?
Yeah, for adult learners. Yeah. I'm just curious about that to connect back to our recorded session.
Honestly, I don't have numbers, but as least I know, the government, in partnership with some non-for-profit organization, has a program, a literacy program that is operational across the country. But I don't have numbers of that reflects what how many, what's the rate of access for adult learners.
Yeah, that would be something interesting to think about, again, as you all are reviewing the asynchronous content, right? Yves Salomon Fernandez.
That's a challenge you leave me. I should take it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, because certainly, right, for the American educational system, but also for many African educational systems where university to higher education is not universal, right, is a lot of these universities are quite new. Thinking about giving people opportunities who are not, 18-year-olds, I think is a very important point as well.
Yeah,
Rose,
that's right.
Rose, if you want to share some reflections in the chat, you're welcome to do so about sort of how, in your work as a disability advisor, how you navigate sort of difficult decision making, right? How you're able to bring the communities you're working with together to make decisions about educational change. So you can feel free to comment in the chat as you can. Jenny, did you want to share any reflections from your side as an American scholar and teacher?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I just wanted to thank you again for including me in this. I learned so much from all of you. What I wanted to mention is that the issues, the concerns that you raise are really many of the same that we see here. When trying to implement any type of advancement or change in science education, it is so important to include everyone who's involved. We include the parents, teachers, administration. We make sure that the curriculum that we're working on is aligned with the state standards, the guidelines that teachers have to follow. And we also have given students opportunities to participate in testing out curriculum and seeing how students respond to what it is that we're creating. So I agree with all of you and what you're saying, how important it is to really include everyone. And also there was a comment earlier about over the past 18 months during the pandemic, the importance of parents. We would not have been able to implement any of our programs without parental support because parents were home working, teaching, cooking, doing everything they needed to do for their families, in addition to, helping to implement, our programs in science education. So I think there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As everyone was speaking in our discussions last week as well, right? I mean, obviously the specifics of the problems differ, but a lot of the key elements that people brought up, right? This challenge of getting Mohammed's initial comments, right? Getting learners involved as sort of, co-creators and developing the content they're working on, right? That's something that we're thinking about a lot in the United States. Comments that Amadou and other fellows raised around the importance of fundraising and community support for education. And many fellows, Mohammed, Grady, Dennis, Fosi, like everybody mentioned the importance of getting parents involved, right? And I think that's something that's so important in the United States context as well, getting parents and families involved. Yes, Dennis, you can go ahead.
Oh yes, if I may come again, there is a particular area let me say, a particular passion, which I've learned with times in the American system, and that is the area of community development included in the educational system. There was a friend who went to Appalachian University, and one of his projects in the university is for them, that means scholars, they have to go in a community, they will develop, they will find a solution in the problem in the community, develop a solution, and then present it. I think in Africa, we need those kind of things because the objective, the goal behind education, I think is mixing. Most of the time when people go to school in Africa, it's probably for the objectives to get a job. To get a job that's or to make a living. But for me personally, I think the objective of education is to be able to appreciate the community need and to contribute toward making it better. If when we miss that, we will end up just getting a paid job and then we're not really making our community better. I think if we can have those strategies by which, in Nigeria, for example, after your university, you will have to do a 1-year community service, by which you will go into another state, and appreciate the need of the state and report on it. In Francophone country where I belong, we don't have those kind of things at all. So today we are training people who are conscious of degree, but not emotionally conscious of the need of the community. I think those things are very important for us to take into consideration when we are advocating for education in our country. Thank you.
Yeah, those are excellent points. Yeah, and you might be interested, Dennis, in learning about a program called AmeriCorps, which places recent American college graduates in community service work for a year. So I think we're going to close up these small groups in a moment. I'm just going to broadcast a message to all. I was kind of waiting on Dr. To close them, but I don't think he's going to. So I want to make sure we have enough time to come back together as a full group and share our reflections. And I saw that Mohammed had another great comment in the chat here about language, both, I think you mean like the literal language of instruction, but also the kind of educational language, right? The kind of discourse of schooling that's being used here, challenging older people who want to return to school to learn technical skills. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an immense challenge, right? And, you know, that's a challenge in this country as well with many immigrant groups and English language learners, but is of course, especially a challenge in African countries, which are generally extremely multilingual, right? So those are some great points. So in wrapping up, would anyone like to volunteer to give a brief summary of what we did in this group? Does anyone feel so bold? Just sort of some key takeaway points that you had from this session. If you feel shy, I can do so. I know that you all don't know each other very well yet. Or Donat, was that an okay, you can do it, or okay, I'll do it?
I am not sure I am ready.
Okay, that's fine. I can share, but I can just briefly, we're not gonna have a lot of time. So I can just briefly share some of the things that I learned. And again, I thank you all so much for joining us in this session. I hope that you've enjoyed our many prepared recordings we have on this topic, and that this will all be very useful information for you as you work to improve education in your communities. And we're going to have the rest of our fellows joining us here for a brief conversation about some of the key takeaways we had from each of the sessions. So welcome back, everyone. All right. And I think we're all assembled now. Okay, great. Welcome back, everyone. We don't have a ton of time to reflect back as a group here, but as I said at the opening, I think it'll be useful to just share a few key takeaways from each of the small groups. In my group, I'll speak for the group and be very brief here. We learned a lot. Jenny Eisenman and I both learned quite a lot as American educators. We in particular saw that there were a lot of commonalities to the kinds of challenges that we've seen facing sort of getting American community buy-in to educational changes in policymaking. So some key themes that several fellows brought up included the importance of parental engagement. FOSI, for example, in Namibia, talked about how the pandemic, really brought that into stark relief, that parents need to be much more both informed of and, have the ability to inform what's going on in their children's schools. Other fellows like Amadou from Guinea gave a really excellent example of community fundraising to totally transform and extend village educational opportunities in his home community. And we also then had some really interesting discussion of university education. Donat talked about Rwanda's really extraordinary experience of radically expanding access to university education since 1994, moving from 3 to 26 universities in that time in the country. But as a group, we also talked about how educational access for adult learners, people trying to sort of reskill or learn new fields or attain even basic literacy in some cases, continues to be a great challenge in all of our countries. So in sum, right, I think my group made some really interesting connections to the content introduced in the first recorded session, which again, as a reminder, talked about the importance of community buy-in and engagement in educational policymaking to advance social justice. I'll turn it over now to Dr. Jabril Solomon and or another spokesperson from his group to just briefly recap the insights in group 2.
So much. We had some wonderful conversation. Dr. Janine Davis-Street joined us, and she shared some very important insight with the fellows, essentially centered around 4 major principles that as an education leader in the pursuit of social justice that are critical to sort of how she does things. And the fellows responded very well to those. I'm also going to invite Dr. Charles from Liberia, who didn't have a chance in our group to share some insights. So Charles, would you recap for us some of the 4 elements that Dr. Street have talked about and add your comments, since we didn't get a chance to get to you in your group? So you've been nominated on the spot to be our spokesperson.
Oh, you're muted, Charles.
Trying to, okay, good. Am I okay now?
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon and the team. It was a wonderful discussion. We had a nice, very nice time learning, especially from Dr. Street and Dr. Solomon and others. I think the 4 key principles that I also noted that are very profound that we should consider are organizing programs, programs that should be able to promote social justice, programs that should be tailored towards helping people to fully realize what they meant to do. I think that's one important aspect. Also, recognizing the marginalized, those who need the services more, those who in their own way, they cannot be able to help themselves fully. And we have to have programs that should be able to address their needs. That was another point that I pick up. Another thing that she emphasized, which was very important, is harnessing or raising resources, because most of the interventions will need some kind of resources to be able to execute them. So as leaders, we should be able to have strategies, we should be able to have connections and contacts to be able to galvanize resources to help us achieve our goals in ensuring social justice. Also, she spoke about leveraging success, meaning that one success should be able to determine another, and learning from the success stories of achievement of what is working and what is not working will also be very meaningful. Other fellows and leaders share various aspects that are also helpful, especially from their line of work, which I believe are also meaningful. Okay, just to add 1 or 2 points, I think generally I personally have a saying that collective success is the most guaranteed success. Collective success is the most guaranteed success. And I think that's the basis for my own advocacy for social justice, because if we think that I can succeed alone, okay, I have the opportunity to be part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship or to be at a certain level in life, and I alone just enjoy the services and order and leave the other people behind. Well, that kind of success is incomplete, because if we cannot be able to use our success to bring others on board, then it becomes quite difficult. It becomes quite challenging for our society. So I always remind myself in my leadership endeavor that we have to succeed collectively. When I was, for example, a student leader, I always push to make sure that other people who are not understanding the system, other people who are ahead, are brought on board to share and push others up in a way to be able to help them. So I think we should think of more of collectively succeeding instead of us individually succeeding. We should try to complete other people instead of competing with them in a way. I also believe that one of the things I do with my youth programs, you know, mostly people want their results. They don't want to enjoy or be part of the process. So we realize that it's better for somebody to teach you how to fish instead of feeding you with fishes. So they should be able to provide the answers, the right thing you need to do for yourself to get yourself out. So mostly in my assistance, including in my family, mostly I provide support for those who are older, but I would rather teach a young person of my age or who is older than me to make a business to multiply their own resources instead of coming all of the time. Mm-hmm. So in that way, we're creating some level of justice because you yourself, sometimes you may not have it or you may not be ready to provide the support. But if you create the platform or the opportunity for others to come along or to also take themselves out, it can be a great deal, especially in Africa or my country. We have dependency syndrome. People want to receive it instead of getting involved in doing it. So thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Solomon, and thanks to the team again for a great period of sharing.
Thank you, Charles. Now okay. I guess we pass it on to Dr. To.
Yes, in our group, all the fellows shared experiences. We've got 6 fellows here who talk about the role of technology in education in terms of access, strategies, and challenges, especially during COVID-19. So I would invite a couple of examples. We have South Africa and especially University of Cape Town about some of the strategies for COVID-19, and Nobisa and also Frank. I'll invite Nobisa to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. Frank, can you just speak? And then I'm going to type my contribution just so that Rose can also just access that.
Yeah.
I'll just type key points. So Frank, you can go ahead, and then my contribution, I'll type it.
Yeah. Are you there, Frank? Frank, can you unmute? I think we lose Frank. Maybe I'll go to the K-12 first. I'll invite either Benim from Ethiopia or Latan from Angola to talk about how you deal with some of the issues about teaching and access. I'm sorry, I forgot your name too, Yusa. Maybe you can speak too.
Yeah, I could just say a few words.
Yes.
So I think what we've learned, I mean, we're trying to get access in Africa from primary and secondary. The big issues I think that came up were the internet problem, right? So there's internet poverty, as I think Ibrahim was saying, and that's really the main issue. So everybody's trying to give, to work with what they have in trying to get content to the students, either, using things that demand less bandwidth, like WhatsApp groups, or completely offline, like we are doing it in Ethiopia. We're just providing, content on computers, fully, packed content to schools. But also, some of the fellows mentioned also TV and radio programs that went on. That also happened in Ethiopia. But again, still with that, you still have the problem of reach, because even those technologies are not, available for everyone. So I think that those are the main things that come to mind.
Thank you, Benim. Any last point from Dr. Bolvin about our group?
I just found this discussion really enriching, just to hear about connectivity issues. And we also touched upon how much of a challenge it is to get to connect personally. I understand that we have to have our cameras off sometimes, whether it be the world around us or to be able to be heard because of the connectivity, but I'm missing that. And I feel as though in my own teaching, I was a muted version of myself this year, where I want to be in person and get to show that I have legs, but also that, I am more than just a floating head, and really get to do all of the activities that I want to do with students. And I think we all shared this desire to utilize this ability to use technology in the future, post-pandemic, not because we have to, but because we can. So it was really inspirational of overcoming and looking ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And when we were delighted that all of our BSU faculty and administrators here were able to join us, this has been a really tremendous opportunity. On that topic of connectivity, I again apologize. A number of people did have some technical connection issues today, so I'm very sorry for that. And I'm also very sorry for the issue with the captioner who had technical issues too. So on that topic, this entire recording will be posted on Canvas on the education group page. And you're welcome to reach out to me and my colleagues if you have any questions about anything that we covered today. You also do have your Community of Practice WhatsApp group. So if you want to, that hasn't been too active yet, but if you want to take advantage of that to further the conversations that you've been having in these small groups, get to know other educational experts across the institutes, please take advantage of that. This should be only the beginning of your networking connections and not the end. On that, I'm going to wrap up because we do have another session to head to for our institute. But thank you all so much for joining us today. Keep in touch with me if any further questions or opportunities for collaboration emerge, and enjoy the last week of your institute next week. Thank you all. Be well. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.